if someone can attack someone that served our country as much as you were attacked in this instance, then anyone's open to that.
One of my presentations, one of four, is Living Free and Fearless. It's a self-defense presentation. I figured I'd give a little deeper dive into our blowout kit that we use as Navy SEALs. So in our blowout kits, we have ace bandage wraps, we have gauze, all kinds of stuff. One of the things that I used back in 2008 were tampons. My social media coordinator took that clip. He's like, oh, that's really interesting. Posted it on social media, specifically on Twitter. It went viral, but not in a great way. It really turned ugly. I got threats on my family. They started attacking identity stuff, bringing up how I ended up getting out of the SEAL teams. My eyes have been opened to the negativity, but also just the evil in a way, that social media can really promote.
Now, with all this being said, this doesn't make social media a bad thing. You have to have a healthy fear of it and use it for the proper usages. If you focus on the good and what you're positively putting out there, finding your voice and pouring your impact out into the world, you're going to have so much more positive impact coming back.
The Bible says, hate what is evil and cling to what is good. It's all about our perspective, and it's all what we choose to focus on. It's easier to hate than it is to love. With what happened with me, I can honestly say it didn't impact my identity at all. It's all about karma. You reap what you sow. So if you continue to put out hate and a lot of that filth, what do you think you're going to continue to get back in your own life?
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. And with me today, I got a returning guest in Phillip Koontz, former Naval Special Warfare operator and a good friend now of mine. And I'm just happy to have him back on the show because in the last couple of weeks, Phillip's gone through the ringer on social media. And we're going to explain to you a little bit about what he's gone through, a little bit about what it takes to put yourself out there, a little bit, actually maybe a lot of bit, about what it means to be an impactor versus an influencer. And we're going to chop it up and hopefully have as much impact on you guys as possible on navigating the waters that are social media. Why don't you run us through what happened a couple weeks ago to you and why you placed the phone call to me, because I think it's just a good story, a good learning lesson, and a lot of people can take away some lessons from here, because I feel like if someone can attack someone that served our country as much as you were attacked in this instance, then anyone's open to that. And we got to be able to make sure that we can proceed with our lives and keep our mental health as strong as possible no matter what happens. So please lead with the story and tell us a little bit about what happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, sure, Josh. So just a little bit of a backstory. This last summer, I was out in Temecula, California, giving a presentation. One of my presentations, one of four, is Living Free and Fearless. It's a self-defense presentation. Well, we had a little extra time, so I figured I'd give a little deeper dive into our blowout kit that we use as Navy SEALs. So our blowout kit, we're all combat medically trained to control four vital aspects of emergency medical care. We call it BATS, so it's bleeding, airway, tension pneumothorax, and shock. So in our blowout kits, we have ace bandage wraps, we have gauze, we have quick clot, we've got tourniquets, all kinds of stuff. Well, one of the things that I used was back in 2008 and 9, 7, 8, and 9 were tampons. And it's kind of a fun fact type thing. They don't use those nowadays, and we can get into that if you want to. So my social media coordinator, he took that clip. And he's like, oh, that's really interesting. Like Navy SEALs use tampons, right? So he took that clip, posted it on social media, and specifically on Twitter. It went viral, but not in a great way. So I had probably 648,000 views in just a few hours. And I was like, holy crap. And at first I was like, hey, even, negative exposure is still, exposure, which was fine with me. But it really turned ugly. It turned into integrity attacks. I mean, I got threats on my family. I got threats on me, like, hey, we're going to show up to your house and you think this is bad, like brace yourself for what's to come. I just all kinds of crazy stuff. So lo and behold, little did I know. I mean, I told you earlier before the podcast here, my eyes have been opened to the negativity, but also just the evil in a way, that social media can really promote. And these trolls out there, I mean, they have nothing better to do than just, tear people down and try to make them feel as miserable as they do. So it was, everything's died down as it normally does. But I was a little bit nervous at first because I'm like, I don't want this to affect my public speaking career, my image, my reputation, that sort of thing. So yeah, it was eye-opening, brother. It wasn't nearly what I expected.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, let's play that clip.
You guys have to promise not to retweet this to anybody, okay? Or share this at all. But Navy SEALs carry tampons. We also carry tampons in our blowout kit. I've got my extended blowout kit right here. So yeah, it just so happens that a bullet wound is the exact same diameter as a tampon. And so we carried these tampons just in case, stick them in the bullet wound, and it does its job. So that's our secret, okay? Navy SEALs carry tampons.
All right, now coming out of that, you called me that night, and it was pretty amazing because you called me, or you texted first, and you called me, and you said, hey, did you happen to see that the post that I made? And I said, I did. I thought it was pretty fascinating. I thought it was interesting. In fact, I have a similar story where my wife and I were driving to Indiana, and I got a bloody nose, and we didn't have any Kleenex in the car after searching, and my wife hands me a tampon. And sure as shit, it worked very well. And I have picture proof because she took a picture to blackmail me for future reference, and I'm flicking her off in the picture as I have this tampon and string hanging out of my nose. So I thought
you're going to post that too, right? We're going to show that.
Yeah, we can. I got to dig that picture up. I'm sure Jenna has it in her favorite files for blackmail. So yeah, we can post that as well because it is kind of funny. But it worked, right? It did its job, what it's supposed to do. So when you posted that, I'm like, that makes sense. Yep. That makes perfect sense. And you're like, oh, but no, it went real negative, real south. And so tell me about some of the teams guys that were attacking you. Tell the audience about that, because it's interesting. Like if you're just getting attacked from trolls,
sure,
people you don't know, people that had no standard, people that didn't serve our country, people that didn't serve our country with the valor and to the degree that you did as a Navy SEAL, you probably never would have cared. But the fact is some of your brothers were attacking you, which was fueling these trolls that made this go negative. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at first, when everything started to go viral, they hadn't jumped in quite yet. It was more like a medical, the medical realm and the medical personnel were jumping in like, hey, you'd never use a tampon, for a wound, that's ridiculous. And this guy's a clown. He's a phony, that sort of thing. So I actually, in response to those guys, I posted a video the next day and just said, hey guys, look, what my intention was not to give good, sound medical advice, right? Like you have an AD, an accidental discharge, and you shoot yourself or something happens, and you're 5 minutes from a hospital, right? Like drive to the hospital and call 911, right? But for us in war, when there's no hospitals around, it's much different. And you exhaust everything that you possibly can. I mean, I've heard of guys even like putting dirt and stuff in just to stop anything, to stop the bleeding, And so at first it was the medical personnel that were all up in arms. Like, are you kidding me right now? And then Josh, it turned evil, is really just the best way, very toxic. And that's when the team guys started, I think they were team guys. I don't even know. I mean, between you and me, they're cowards anyways, whoever they are, because they hide behind this facade, this pseudonym, this, the name, the profile that they have. but none of them ever were like, this is who I am. You know, this is my real name and this is how you can get a hold of me, right? To have a conversation kind of thing, even though I asked. So I'm assuming we'll just, for the sake of the podcast, assume that there was a few team guys that were on there, even though I don't know. And they started attacking identity stuff, bringing up how I ended up getting out of the SEAL teams, and questioning, saying, oh, this guy was never even deployed. He was dishonorably discharged. He had his trident revoked and was changed his last name, after he got out to hide his identity. I mean, it was, and then my wife, God bless her, she was like, well, I want to stick up for you. And I'm like, no, honey, don't do that. But as I can't control my wife, right? They have their own will. And so I'm like, you do what you want. So she got on there and was defending me a little bit. And they're like, oh yeah, now your wife is fighting your battles and, all that stuff. And I mean, it just got so toxic that I'm like, cost benefit analysis. I'm like, I don't need Twitter, and we'll get into the influencer and impactor, that sort of thing. But for me, man, Twitter is it's just a social media outlet and platform that is it's really pretty negative. And I've gotten that confirmation from other people since that time as well too. They're like, yeah, Instagram's great, Facebook's okay, LinkedIn, of course, great, very professional, very business, but Twitter is just full of trolls. They'll say whatever it is that they want to say. I mean, my wife even reported some of the posts that were threatening us, and Twitter came back and said, "There's nothing really wrong with that. Like there's nothing that we can see that's going to be worth us following up on." And I'm like, holy crap. So yeah, it was bad, man. It very eye-opening.
Yeah. Well, talk about your last name, because I know it had a meaning to you, a special meaning, and why there was a change. So to know, for the audience sake, he does have a hyphenated last name. We've always introduced him as Phillip Koontz because that's his business name, but his hyphenated last name is Hosterman -Koontz. Mm-hmm. And so talk a little bit about that, because it is a mouthful.
Yeah. So Koontz is my birth name. So Phillip Koontz was my name for the first 18 years of my life. And then I added Hosterman because that's my stepdad's last name. And he did a phenomenal job of raising me, very integral part of my life. And so I thought, hey, you know what? When I turned 18, I added Hosterman as my last name to really kind of honor him. So it is a mouthful, which is why I still, and a little confusing sometimes. So that's why I still just, go by my birth name, Phillip Koontz, but legally it is Hosterman Koontz.
Yeah. And that's special, right? And I've had friends that have done the same thing to honor either a step parent or for whatever or their mother's maiden name, even. Mm-hmm. They've added and hyphenated to their birth name. I've even had a friend that removed his birth name and switched it to his mother's maiden name because he felt more identified with her and her family and the roots and teachings that she gave than his father.
Sure.
And that family. So a name means something, but to attack the name or blasphemy someone because they don't actually understand the full story behind someone's name, it's again speaks to the trolls that you were mentioning before. And so speak to the discharge, because that was right. Interestingly enough, who knows? So for those of us that aren't in the field or aren't in the services or haven't served our country, who knows what's on your DD-214? Who knows if you've been honorably discharged or dishonorably discharged? Who would know that?
Yeah, I'd say in the civilian world, most people don't even know what a DD-214 is. So it's simply just a piece of paper. It's a document that every service member gets when they exit the military. And it's got the awards that you received. It's got the time in service. It's got your NEC, your rate or your MOS. It's got, of course, your name, your social. It's got some of the schools that you went to, and then it also lists whether you were honorably or dishonorably or other than honorably discharged. So it's kind of like a catch-all document that kind of gives a good snapshot of your military career when you get out.
Yeah, but who would know in the military if you were dishonorably discharged? Just the guys on your team?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't even think. Yeah, I not a whole lot of people would even know. Yeah, maybe the guys that are the closest to you, like in the SEAL teams, the guys that are on your platoon, maybe your task unit, that sort of thing. But most guys, like once you get out, I mean, most guys don't even know whether someone was honorably or dishonorably discharged. I guess we all pretty much just assume that you're honorably discharged unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah, so it's interesting for me because I've had many family members that served. I did not serve myself, but to most people that have served, they don't like highlighting their medals. They don't like highlighting the war they were in or the accolades they were in. And I think that's why some team members look down on other team members that have written books or told war stories anyhow. And we can talk about that in a moment. But like my grandfather, who's a Purple Heart recipient, never once told me that story, never wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And I saw all the medals because my grandmother displayed them in a kind of a display frame, but never once would he ever talk about it. The only reason I know about the medals he earned was because she talked about it.
Yep. And
she was proud of him. So it's just interesting, like you're sitting here contemplating posting your DD-214 to disprove these trolls and potentially team members or non-team members, who knows, where you're actually going to have to post that, and it shows what medals you earned and where you were deployed and all that different stuff, which is stuff you don't necessarily want to highlight or talk about, but yet you're now contemplating doing that to disprove some assholes, essentially.
Right. And that's where the rubber met the road for me. And I just had to take a step back, and I'm like, I don't owe these guys anything. And so I chose to just take the back seat and just let them spew their venom, and eventually everything died down. And so ultimately it was an integrity thing for me in saying that I don't owe these guys anything. But trust me, man, like there was a big part of me that wanted to defend myself, that wanted to post that and be like, here you go, mother effer, like shut up now. But that's not gonna, that wasn't gonna shut them up. They're gonna, say something like, oh, that was doctored, or oh yeah, that was, forged, or there's, you changed it, or, whatever. So, and I knew that I just didn't want to get further and further down that rabbit hole. So I decided not. I'm like, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. All my friends, my network, like they know who I am, and that's good with me. I don't have to. Yeah. I don't owe these guys anything.
It's interesting. Because I want to get to how this can impact everyone, and hopefully people are getting impact from this already. Because again, if someone of this stature can be attacked, we all can be attacked. I've been attacked a number of times over the past few years, and actually they were quite personal attacks. They weren't necessarily viral attacks like you've received recently. And even from one of my own family members who we don't speak with anymore. But my wife, like your wife, wants to defend me. And I said, I had a text with her the other day. I said, hon, what I've learned over the last few years is anyone that attacks you, it doesn't do you any good to breathe life into that attack. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We can't control what they're going to say. We can't control how they feel. We can't control what they do. We can only control how we feel, what we say, and what we do.
That's right.
I was like, so for me to breathe life into that attacker of that family member, and there's been other attackers, it takes energy from me.
Yep.
It takes energy from my purpose. It takes energy from the purpose that I have to help others. So if I'm worried about that person over there that's talking shit, the people that know me best aren't going to believe that person. Mm-hmm. They're going to know their integrity. They're going to know my integrity. So I have to focus on what my mission is, what my purpose is, which is to impact others and to help others and to solve problems for others and not worry about what someone else is going to say about me. Because at the end of the day, that person, even though it's a family member, in all likelihood, where our relationship is right now, they're not going to be next to me on my deathbed anyhow.
Right.
They're not going to be there if I needed them the most anyhow. Right. And neither would any of these trolls on the internet. Right. And most of these trolls are 400-pound dudes in their mom's basement typing, trying to make your life as miserable as their life is.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you breathe life into it,
Yep.
You're now that 400-pound
Yeah.
asshole typing on a computer and a headset, stuffing his face with McDonald's
Right.
in your mom's basement.
Right. Makes you know better than them. Right. So it's just, yeah, I like that. It's just continually throwing fuel on the fire. And, one of the things that I thought of as you were unpacking your experience is, have you ever heard of the tale of two wolves?
Yes.
And that's exactly what it is. It's which wolf are you going to feed? You're sitting there on the fence, and are you going to feed the wolf that is negative, and the one that's revengeful, and the one that fuels your anger and seeks to hurt others and to harm others, and is feed this negativity? Or are you going to feed the wolf that, like you said, that's going to be more positive? It's going to be life giving, and feeding the relationships of the people that we already know, and investing in those relationships rather than wasting our time with these jokers, who we don't owe them anything.
So because of this major negative experience, are you going to get off the internet? You're going to get off?
That's a hard no. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be, that is one thing. I'm not going to be the dog that's running away with the tail between my legs, completely getting off. I am going to focus more on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm off Twitter for good reasons. I don't want to waste my time and energy, mental fortitude.
Well, it never brought you any business, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Twitter has never brought me any business, So I like LinkedIn a lot. This is the business, the professional platform that is. So that's where a lot of my energy and efforts are going to be going to, and things like this, and then Instagram, I think is pretty decent as well too. I don't know if Facebook, does anybody ever do Facebook anymore? It used to be big, but so Facebook's kind of like in the distance, but it's not toxic though, like Twitter is.
No, I mean, so I use Facebook quite a bit, and I think it can be good. And basically what I do is my messaging, and some brand experts would say that messaging should be slightly tailored towards the different platforms.
Yep.
For me, because I'm the one doing it, I don't have a brand or social media manager. I just keep it consistent across those three platforms, which is Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And Facebook I've had quite a bit of success with as well. But yeah, those are the three main ones I would say to be good. And I want to speak to all of those out there right now that might be sitting on the sidelines and not wanting to put yourself out there for fear of rejection, whether it's massive viral rejection and attacks like Phillip's has gotten, or if it's just minor and, you're worried about what others will think of you. I want to hear your opinion on that, because both of you and I have both built a brand on social media. And obviously we built it in our personal lives first by being good at what we do. But then through social media, it is a great tool to add fuel to the fire. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about how you've built your brand and why you chose to go onto social media to build that brand.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a public speaker, as an author, a business coach, getting our name out there is big, but I would back up and ask the why behind it, right? My why is to be an impactor. I want to impact people at a deep level. What gets me out of bed in the morning, Josh, is making a positive, lasting impact in the lives of everyone that I speak to or that see me on social media. So I never wanted to be like the influencer, like the YouTuber or, whatever, like that's not who I am, but I do very much desire to be an impactor and to really make a positive, lasting impact in people's lives. So it's kind of the nature of the beast because of the profession that we're in. It's inevitable, it's a necessary evil that we have to jump on social media. That's why I've hired a guy to help me out. It's funny because when I was in the SEAL teams, like in my 20s, that's generally the time that you would start to get onto social media and like really, practice it and build your brand and everything. Well, for us in the SEAL teams, we have operational security, OPSEC. We couldn't post pictures. We couldn't post anything on social media, because we had to be behind the scenes. So I really kind of missed that. And I'm not a big social media guy, which is why I'm outsourcing that and hiring somebody else to be able to run that for me, because for me, I just be spinning my wheels and wasting my time because I'm not that great at it as far as creating and editing the content and things like that. But it is, I mean, for us, it's necessary for us to do that. So I think I would really, for the listeners out there, ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? Why am I getting on these platforms? Is it to seek fame and notoriety and to be popular and well known? If that's it, then, expect the haters to start to emerge, and you have to have a pretty thick skin. With what happened with me, I can honestly say it didn't impact my identity at all. For me, it was just like, oh no, I don't want this to somehow negatively influence my future clients. If they're watching this thing and they're like, I don't know who this guy is. Is he really a SEAL? That sort of thing. I didn't want it to impact my business. But as far as my identity goes, it didn't have any impact on me. I'm like, you can say whatever you want to say. I know who I am. And that's the hard thing, because, the whole social media depression thing is real. I mean, the people that are taking their lives because these trolls, because these haters, because family members, I mean, they're attacking these people so much, and they're allowing it, they're taking it in, that shame, that regret, it's attacking their identities, and it's really damaging who they are. And it's like they're owning it. It's becoming a part of them. It's like they're reading these things, right? These posts, these comments, and they're ingesting it, and it's becoming a part of them, and they're almost like buying into the message, and they're like, oh, maybe this is who I am, and maybe I should just take my life because things are depressing, things are hopeless, things are, I am an idiot, I fill in the blank kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. It actually brought to mind, because again, why this is so impactful, why I wanted to have you back on the podcast to talk about this, is because, look, Navy SEALs to me are a little bit like NFL players, whereas like that notoriety is there. Mm-hmm. Already, just because and I know that Navy SEALs, maybe you guys don't want to hear this because football is it's an entertainment thing where you guys actually put your lives on the line, but you were the highest of the high regard as far as reputation is concerned. And then a professional athlete, like, again, for guys so I played college football, I wasn't good enough to get to the pros. I think us guys like all want to be like you, or all want to be like in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And like, so, but we weren't able to. So like you have this notoriety automatically just by the fact that you were a Navy SEAL, or just by the fact that someone did play in the NFL. Those are the analogy that I kind of put together, even though they're so vastly different as far as what their honors or how we should look at that. And the fact that you can be attacked not only by 400-pound trolls stuffing their faces with McDonald's, but also people in the teams. That's where you got to have that thick skin. That's why you have to pay attention to your why and why you're posting in the first place, not to be an influencer, but to be a man or woman of impact. Mm-hmm. You got to hang on to that, because if you can be attacked, if an NFL player can be attacked, because you guys have done what most of us never would be able to do. Like, any of us can be attacked, and that's why we got to focus on our why. And are we being a person of impact or trying to be an influencer? So speaking of influencer, this is just interesting. Livy Dunn is the highest NIL earner female in college sports. She's a gymnast out of LSU, if people don't know her. She's beautiful. She was in Sports Illustrated. And it was interesting. I was researching her a little bit because I like the NIL, and I shouldn't say I like it. I'm interested in it. I'm very interested in how it's going to impact collegiate sports. So I was researching her along with some of the top male athlete earners, and I just happened to click on a post of hers, and it was like, holy cow, the comments. Not only like the lust for her, but then there's also like the haters come in. Mm-hmm. And they're not just women, but they're men. And it's like, well, if I was a blonde, attractive blonde, I'd be selling my body on the internet too. And like, just stupid comments like that. It's like, what makes you think that opinion should not only come out of your mouth, but post on that person's page?
Right.
Like, what type of a person? You can have the thought. We can all have those thoughts. But what makes you think that you should put that in a comment and hit enter so that that person can read it and potentially feel bad about themselves or think negatively? You have to think back to what we talked about before, is they're trying to make that person that's doing their thing feel as miserable as they feel in saying, thinking, or living the life that they're living at that current moment.
It's I mean, basically distilling it down, it's bullying behavior. You know, when we grew up in elementary school and junior high, like the bullies that were in the school, those are the kids that were the most insecure with who they were. And so they have to, so they have to put other people down in order to make themselves feel better. So you're right. There's a bunch of bullies out there. There's people that are depressed. They're, anxious. They're walking around with panic attacks, and we live in the most medicated country in all the world, right? I mean, so there's a lot of people in the United States that are just not in a good headspace, and they're medicated and they hate their life. They hate who they've become. And you know what, Josh? It's easier to hate than it is to love. It really is. It's easier to be able to point fingers, point the blame, put other people down than it is to build them up. And the hate out there is rampant nowadays. So I mean, it reminds me of the age-old bullies, that they just, I mean, I experienced that as a new guy in the SEAL teams, the hazing by these guys, it was done to them. And so now they're doing it. And it's like this generational thing that continues on and on and on and on. And it's like, who's going to be the person that stands up and says, I'm breaking this cycle. I'm stopping this insanity because it's not working. And that's
the thing, is like, it actually doesn't work. Right. I was in a fraternity and there was hazing. Like, that doesn't make anyone a better human being.
100%.
So you're right. The bullying shifted from the classroom to online. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're getting people with brain health problems and committing suicide and all the different things that we, it's crazy. The kids uptick, the teenagers uptick in suicide attempts and actual suicide is astounding. And a large part is because of social media. Now, with all this being said, this doesn't make social media a bad thing. It's a tool, just like a gun is a tool. Mm-hmm. And that may be a poor analogy, but bottom line is, it might be a good one too. But either way, you have to have a healthy fear of it and use it for the proper usages. And like, I love how you started with being of impact versus influence, because there's too many people, whether it's TikTok or other social media sources, that are trying to be influencers. You're just teeing yourself up to be attacked.
That's right.
Whereas if you're focused on impact, you're still going to get attacked, but you got to focus on the positive impact that you're having. Much like you and I are speakers, and I'm curious to see your approach. My approach has always been this. I used to focus on, because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to impact everyone in the audience. And although that's noble, it just can't happen. The best speakers in the world, Ed Milet, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, you name it, top speakers in the world, top paid speakers in the world, there's going to be people in that audience that they speak to that go, yeah, that guy's full of shit.
Right.
And hate. You're not going to please anyone. So I would go in nervous then, because I was thinking about me. Mm-hmm. When I switched my paradigm to being like, I know I'm not going to please everyone in this audience. I'm going to be authentically me and serve them. Mm-hmm. And if I impact one person, whether I'm speaking to 100 or 1,000, if I impact one, I've done my job.
100%, man. I love that perspective. Yep.
Is that how you go about it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's all about our perspective, and it's all what we choose to focus on, which I think brings us back to the why. The why is really the core foundation, the cornerstone, the rock upon which we build our businesses, why we're doing what we're doing. And it's got to be what we continually lean on. And by the way, I love the analogy of the firearm, of the weapon. Absolutely. I mean, a firearm in one person's hand can save lives and can preserve freedom. And that same firearm in someone else's hand can go into schools and shoot a bunch of innocent kids, which is horrific. So that firearm, just like our words, right? The Bible says our words are very, very powerful. And so the words that we speak or the words that we type, they have impact. And I don't know, man, that is the $1 million question. I don't know why some people out there choose to hit the enter button and put out the filth that they do. It's just, I mean, it's all about karma. You reap what you sow. So if you continue to put out hate and a lot of that filth, what do you think you're going to continue to get back in your own life? I mean, I'd hate to look at the heart of the person who's just out there to ruin people. I mean, what a miserable experience. What a miserable life. It's just, it's such a foreign concept to guys like me and you that I can't make any sense of it. And to be honest with you, I mean, the same thing is true in the SEAL teams. It is very much of a dog eat dog kind of culture. And I don't know if it's ever going to change. A good friend of mine, he lives 10 minutes away from me. He was he retired after 20 years in the SEAL teams, had a great career, and he posted a couple things on LinkedIn about a year ago, and similar thing. There's some team guys that reached out to him and were threatening him and putting him down and really trying to discourage him and call him out and spewing all kinds of hate. And it's just unfortunately, it's the way that it is. It's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, The Truth Behind My Trident. And I wanted to pull back the curtain. I love naval special warfare. I love the brotherhood. I love the teams and what we're about and preserving our freedom in this country. I love that. But with every organization, there is an underbelly as well too. And unfortunately, we were talking offline about this as well too. And my best stab at it is jealousy. Again, back to that bullying thing, there's these guys, and I address this in my book as well too. The majority of the team guys that I knew had very traumatic backgrounds. They were beaten by their father. They weren't loved the way that they should be. They had really rough childhoods. And, they take that and they're like, well, if I become a SEAL, if I get through BUDS, a world's, hardest military training, then surely I'm a man at that point, right? So it's like they need this affirmation of who they are. But then, as you make it through BUDS, you're a Navy SEAL. That doesn't necessarily translate into, okay, now I'm a man. You're just carrying that same baggage then into that community. And it's still the bullying kind of mentality, the dog eat dog. And I think a lot of guys are just jealous of each other. It's all about, the promotion. And it's all about, who can I throw under the bus? I mean, you look at guys like Eddie Gallagher, who had the war crimes, and it happens quite a bit in the teams where you've got guys that are throwing each other under the bus and really trying to basically look out for numero uno and making sure that they get the promotions and stuff in the limelight.
Well, it's interesting. I think you say that is because what the military and especially the SEALs or other special forces are great at are turning you into the baddest motherfuckers on the planet.
Right.
But that doesn't address your emotional intelligence. That doesn't make you a mature human being.
100%.
That makes you the baddest motherfucker on the planet. That is what it is. Like, you guys are built to go do things that none of the rest of us can even comprehend. However, the mental and emotional anguish that it was brought up through childhood, or even the traumas you endured from the stuff you saw in your time served, is not being addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an immature human being trapped in a badass body.
Yep, that's a great way to put it. A great way to put it. Another thing too that I just came to my mind. One of my buddies who was in my sister platoon in SEAL Team 10. It was right after I got out. A few months afterwards, one of his teammates, they were overseas, and there was a detainee. There was a terrorist who was getting unruly, and in order to subdue him, he struck him in the face. Well, one of his teammates, a couple of his teammates who didn't like him, they basically told on him and got back to the States, went through the UCMJ, got busted down in rank, got in trouble for hitting a terrorist in the face. And he's like, look, man, if this is the way the teams are going, then I don't want anything to do with it. He got out as well too. So, as much as Hollywood likes to portray the missions of SEALs, and they do a pretty decent job of that in glorifying the mission and glorifying the experience, it's a much different experience when you're actually in the community. I actually refer to it more like a junior high locker room than than anything else. So it's yeah, man, it's hard. It is. It's a hard reality to wrestle with.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears and talk a little bit, kind of wrapping up here, about what is the most positive thing, if you could distill it down to one thing, maybe it's a couple, that you've gotten from being present and building your brand on social media.
Yeah,
and I'll give mine as well.
Yeah. The most positive thing that I've experienced is just the feedback and the comments of people who are really impacted by the videos, by the messages, by what I have to say. I mean, for example, just this last Veterans Day, just a couple weeks ago, and I was at my kid's school, and they were doing like the veterans, honoring the veterans, and they had the unmanned table, the table set for one for the person who never came back. And man, something about that just struck me this year, and I started getting choked up. I started getting emotional, and just after the ceremony, went up to the table, with the chair and the white tablecloth and the rose and the table set for one, and the salt and the lemon and everything that it represents. I just knelt before the table and said a prayer for all those men and women who didn't return. And I posted it. I posted on LinkedIn because I thought it was appropriate, to honor those people and those families, who weren't afforded to have their loved ones come home and really to celebrate their life in a way that they were able to. And the comments that I got from that were really heartfelt. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's the impact. So the most positive thing that's coming from social media for me is seeing that I'm having a significant impact in people's lives. And that's what I got to hold on to. That's what I got to focus on.
No, that does answer my question, because mine's very similar. Notice that he didn't say business, and he has gotten business from his social media, as have I. But my number one thing has also been, it's actually not the people that comment on my stuff. It's the people that I run into, and they say, hey, Josh, I've been following you the last couple of years, and I've never commented, but what you're doing, I really appreciate and admire, and really love the stuff that you're putting out.
Yep.
It's having a big impact. Like I ran into someone at the tailgate that said, I'm obsessed with your stuff. It was a female, actually. It was interesting. She was like, I'm obsessed with your stuff. Like, I'm one that kind of like just watches in the dark, and I don't comment or anything like that. She's just like, I love your podcast, love everything you're doing. Like, keep going.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's those comments, or someone that I run into at the gym where I get personal training done, and they're like, and they come in and they're like, hey, your post kind of finally broke me down. So, because I said, hey, are you coming to work out with me? And he's like, no, not with you. He goes, but I am here because of you, because over the last 3 years due to COVID, I let myself go and I need to get back in shape. So your post finally broke me down. Like shit like that. Like, I don't think that dude, I've known him from the country club that I belong to, but I don't think he's ever commented, maybe never liked any of my stuff, but I had an impact on him enough where he is starting to change his life by coming to the gym again.
Yep. That's it in a nutshell, man. I mean, I was just in Dallas yesterday at a speaking event, and afterwards, to your point, it's the comments that we get afterwards. Afterwards, there was a couple people that came up and they're like, I felt like this was like an hour-long therapy session, counseling session that I really needed while I was listening to you, listening to your stories, listening to the things that you were presenting on and talking about. I was giving overcoming adversity. And yeah, man, I mean, every week and I've been blessed, man. God has just opened the heavens and poured out just blessings on the business. So I really appreciate that. I mean, I'm booked through Q1 of next year, and it's business is going good, as I know it is for you as well too. But that's not the driving force. It's the comments of the people that we get afterwards that make all the difference.
Yeah, and if you go on there, again, we're thinking about the why. If you go on there for business, people will see right through it. But if you go on for impact, you're going to get far more business because of it, just like Phillip and I are. And so in closing, everyone, I was on my drive home last night, and I was thinking about all the bad shit that's going on in the world right now and how much we're being gaslit by our own government and our own media on a daily basis. And this is why I don't watch the news, by the way.
Right.
But I still, obviously, you're not immune to it. If you're on social media, if you listen to any podcast, if you listen to my podcast, you're going to hear some news that's negative. So you're not immune to it no matter where you go. I just don't watch news because I know most of it's bullshit. But I was just thinking about all the bad stuff in this world. And I'm like, whether it's the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel, all the different stuff that we got going on here on the home front, immigration, crime, all the different stuff. I'm like, I had to stop myself. I'd be like, I could focus on that, but there's so much more good going on in the world. And if you just open your door or talk to your neighbors or see what someone's doing on Giving Tuesday and all the impact that's happening through that, it's which wolf do you feed? Like you mentioned, like, am I going to focus on the good or am I going to focus on the bad? Because if you focus on the bad, our brains are hardwired. That's insidious. Our brains are hardwired to magnify negativity. That's by 200 times. That's part of the amygdala. It's part of our fight or flight mechanism. So I was just thinking about it. That's the exact same message I want you to hear about social media. If you focus on the good and what you're positively putting out there, finding your voice and pouring your impact out into the world, you're going to have so much more positive impact coming back. If you focus on the bad and the negative comments that you're getting by putting your voice or the potential, a lot of times people are not putting themselves out there of the potential negative comments. They haven't even gotten them yet. Right. See, Phillip got him, and to the worst degree, and he's still going. He's not quitting. So find your voice, put yourself out there, and have the positive impact that you're intending to have, because you never know who you might help. I'll give you the final word, Phillip.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, my brain just went to scripture, so that's a perfect way to end, right? So the Bible says, hate what is evil and cling to what is good. And that's just a simple message, ignore the haters, ignore the trolls, ignore the people that are trying to tear you down. And to your point, cling to what is good, choose to focus on the positive, choose to focus on what is going well, and capitalize on that and have that be your perspective, because being negative and paying attention to the news and paying attention to everything that's going on right now, it's very contagious. And before long, little do you know, you've just developed the habit, the neurological pathways of thinking more negatively and being impacted more negatively than being influenced more positively.
Amen. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing the story and being vulnerable with us today. I hope everyone got a lot of impact out of this, and that you can find your voice and share your voice so that you can see the positive things that Phillip and I have both seen by building our brands on social media. There may be something that goes viral that you get some negative stuff on, as Phillip experienced. But guess what? Like we talked about, he's not quitting. He's focusing on his impact. So for those of you out there, just remember, good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.